Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is November the 18th, 2022. It is a Friday. And might I add, it is a chilly Friday. I guess I got to get back into the swing of that, right? If you've been listening throughout the ages, there's always like that adjustment period for me, or just there's like the extra cold episode. Maybe you can just tell that I'm all bundled up or whatever. I actually have to wear clothes as opposed to like the summer where I just get to be freed up. I get to be more closer to my true self, if you feel me. Um, but yeah, we've made it to the end of the week. We're at the week's end, and overall, gotta say good. Personal news stuff. We like to get it out of the way at the top. Food corner. We had our Thanksgiving or holiday meal for the week at work, and your boy was able to scam two tickets because essentially you have to have a ticket to eat. And I'm like, no, I'm not just gonna eat one time, especially because this was like buffet style. So it's like your first run is like a survey. It's more important about getting the spread of things and make sure you get your bang for your buck, right? So I wanted to capitalize there. Now I will say I was able to actually, through the generosity of my coworkers slash friends, I got like three tickets. So I was in there like swimwear, maybe like four, but really only needed two. So we went through. I got essentially the run of what we could get. The salad, which was like I want to say a Caesar salad. Probably wrong there on the description, but it had like carrots and had some tomatoes with a ranch dressing. Then they had green beans. Then they had mashed potatoes. They also had turkey as like the main meat. That was the only meat. What should I say? It was only turkey. They had rolls, and the first run, the rolls that I saw were available was a rye roll or just a what is it, like a white grain roll? Let's say that, whatever. And what else was there? And there was also gravy. Uh, and then you get to the end, and there was a thing of cranberries. Now these cranberries were different. It was like almost like, I don't want to say chutney. That's probably the wrong word, but it just felt like some kind of mix of some sort. It was not normal. There wasn't like any nuts or anything. It was just the cranberry, but essentially the taste of it was very peculiar. It had like almost like a lemony kind of thing. Like there was just extra additives in there somewhere. It was very bright, like colorful, but just not tasty. Not the flavor I wanted out of my cranberries. I was like, maybe if I put this on the salad, it would have been okay, but I wouldn't have done that. I'm not a salad cranberry guy. I don't really like fruit in my salad, so essentially the whole meal. It was okay. I would say it was edible. Obviously, spoiler, I do get seconds. I use the second ticket. And, the gravy was fine on everything that I put it on. But yeah, at the end of the day, free is me. I'm not going to complain about a meal. The second time, I kind of just cut the cranberries and added like more bread. And they had like a bread with sesame seeds or something on it. And I was like, all right, cool. I took that. And I got more turkey. So it was a success. It was a good meal. It's fine. Another highlight meal, I guess I could add. I did the pot roast with rice again. That was very good. Thank you, Kroger, for that little baggie. But I added like popcorn chicken, and I made like a sauce for that chicken, like a spicy sauce, and I put that on the pot roast because I'm a maniac. And then I had a bagel on the side, two pieces of bread, and egg rolls. So those are my weird, wonky meals of the week. Like I said, I'm doing pretty good. And we can get into the news. I'm sorry, I kept you guys waiting. I don't know if you guys like me talking about my personal bullshit, but I'm not gonna stop. My name would not be on the fucking podcast if I wasn't gonna talk about my fucking self. and then insert my fucking opinions. I don't think people come here for the fucking NPR spin for real. But if so, I mean, I can send you a link or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into it. Start off with CNN. We usually do start with the Ukraine-Russia stuff. There were some developments, so, wanted to cover at least a couple of highlights. Poland acted with full restraint after missile killed two people, ambassador tells UN. So, I mean, this was big, shocking news that had happened. Essentially, yeah, what was it? I think it was Tuesday. But, yeah, Tuesday. There was a missile that crossed the border and hit like this rural farm area in Poland and killed two people. It was not a good scene. The initial report and what you like Zelensky and Ukraine had come out and said was like, yo, Russia has been shooting missiles at us, constantly, and apparently these missiles have crossed, into a NATO country and killed two people. And that's how the story was kind of, initially put out. But, Russia did deny that. And they said, no, our missile wasn't, fired there. We have a full report of where our missiles hit where they were supposed to hit. So, no, that's not true. More information was coming out. And it definitely seemed like maybe this wasn't a Russian missile per se, which obviously then makes things, well, it's awkward either way. Because, I mean, we're sitting on a potential World War III situation when a NATO country is getting hit and people are getting killed. Like, that's big, big time. That's like, oh, we might have to move with the clock type shit. But essentially things seemingly de-escalated I don't want to say quickly, but I would say like it was by Wednesday, Thursday. I was hearing interviews and stuff, and people were asking Biden and stuff. I think he had just come back from like the G20 summit or whatever, which I don't know if I'm really going to cover too much about him going and meeting with Xi Jinping. It's been busy. It's a lot of news, guys. That might be as much as I cover, but we'll see. But essentially, they had asked him, hey, like, what's going on with the situation in Poland? And, is Russia responsible? And, more or less Biden said, no, like, it doesn't look like from what the evidence is showing that Russia did this, which then kind of goes in, well, then what happened? And, more or less from what is unfolding. Now, this, once again, is counter to what Ukraine is saying, but essentially what, the evidence is looking like. That these missiles were from Ukrainian air defense and they were potentially misfired in a way and, crossed into Poland and hit these people. Now, essentially, people are still saying that the blame isn't on Ukraine, that this is still a war that was started and is being continued by Russia, and that inevitably the blame is on them for this situation. But obviously a very, very tense week for that. I mean, I definitely thought this was going to be scarier if this scenario happened. I think a lot of people did. So, I mean, good that we are not nuking each other yet. So, knock on wood, fingers crossed that things stay good. Vegan kosher, I don't know. But we can kind of move on from there. I know I'm just kind of, obviously, if you want to read the article, get into the thick. Definitely, I'm just kind of riffing. We're riffing a little bit more today. The next article I got from The Guardian. 3 men found guilty of murdering 298 people and shooting down of MH17. Now, this was a verdict that was handed down to 3 men. There was a 4th man, but I believe he was acquitted. And 2 of these men were Russian. Let me see. Let me run their names. Russian nationals Igor Gherkin and Sergei Dubinsky. Dubinsky. I don't know. I'm getting that name wrong. And then there was also an Ukrainian, Leonid Karchenko. Um, and let's see, they were found guilty of bringing down the plane and the murder of everyone on board. They were ordered to pay more than 16 million euros in compensation to the victim, and to the victims, sorry. But essentially, they were tried and sentenced in absentia. So that means they aren't there for the actual trial. I believe one of the men was actually did send in a defender and then like video called, to kind of, he said, in defense of himself and also his country. So I mean, obviously just a super bad scene. This was something I didn't know about. Essentially, I didn't know if I was going to cover it. I mean, this is something that took place in 2014. A flight is going, and it breaks down the composition of the passengers, like who's who, like coming from where or going to where, yada yada. But essentially, the plane was shot down by a Russian-made Buk missile or Buk missile, from an agricultural field in eastern Ukraine. Now, essentially, these men were separatists, and they were put in, and this is obviously like post, Crimean invasion shit, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, essentially, though, they did this really fucked up shit and shot down this plane. They didn't have to do it; they just did it. And when it comes to the Kremlin, they're like, well, they kind of do a thing where they try to like spread a little bit of misinformation along the way. They're like, hey, well, first off, this is messed up that we're not involved. We're not allowed to be involved in this whole process, this investigation that you guys are doing. And I mean, essentially, this investigation is pretty gruesome because they're saying like even like years after, they're coming back to like the area and like still finding like more evidence, still finding more like debris, more metal and stuff, and just contents of the pilot or contents of the victims. So I mean, really like sad stuff. But essentially, this has been like an ongoing case. So at least the silver lining here is that like there's been a verdict issued. I wouldn't say that this justice is served, but at least people know that like, hey, I believe there's even one of the men potentially is on the battlefield in Ukraine. So I mean, if he is captured, then potentially he could be tried, but or he wouldn't be. I don't even think he'd be tried. They wouldn't double. It's like a double jeopardy thing. You're already guilty, so they'd probably just do a sentence, which would be like a life sentence. Oh, excuse me. There's the perp. Sorry, guys. Sorry, y'all. Let's see. We'll read a quote from Vladimir Zelensky. Vladimir Zelensky said it was an important court decision. Oh, this is from a tweet. Holding to account masterminds is crucial too, as the feeling of impunity leads to new crimes. We must dispel this illusion. Punishment for all Russia's atrocities, then and now, is inevitable. Also, I've heard that there's like a kind of a consensus that this act was either like a foreshadowing or just a kind of like almost like a start from the occupation in Crimea, saying like, look, we aren't just here for that. Like, we are going to expand. We are going to do more. Like, this is only the beginning type of vibe, I guess. Once again, that kind of felt loose to me personally, but I've just been hearing the story, like, listening like to the podcast cycles, news cycles, at least about 3 times or so. So I was like, all right. I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna cover it. Just some miscellaneous news, though. I mean, a lot of airstrikes, kind of how I mentioned from the Poland part of the Ukraine stuff. A lot of damage going into winter. I mean, I think like snowfall started this week for them in Ukraine. So, I mean, you're looking at a really bitter winter. and you have engineers who are scrambling to try to get the lights back on. It's obviously not a good situation for the Ukrainian people and their energy situation. Obviously very fucked up that Russia has chosen this line, of tactic. Uh, you know, it's a real fucking shame that this shit is just not stopping. I don't know. Maybe I'm finding myself really once again kind of having one of those moments where I'm like, this shit is still fucking going, and I'm like, I mean, I've talked about, like, speculated, like, I mean, I don't think that this was just gonna get wrapped up, but like, there's just these moments where you just go, damn, dude, like, this is still fucking happening. Like, people are still fighting over this shit, like. And I mean, obviously, there's other wars, other conflicts going on, and those have been going on even longer than this. But it's just crazy. It's crazy shit. We move on, though, to some other international news, because I'm done with that. So I got this from Yahoo News and Reuters. North Korea fires a long-range missile landing near Japan. Draws condemnation. So, once again, I think this is one I'm not really going to hit on too much. I mean, there's been a lot of North Korea missile talk. This year, they've really fired off a lot, especially recently. A lot, like some even hitting off the coast of Japan. But this one being an intercontinental ballistic missile. I'm just going to say ICBM from now on, even though that for some reason makes me think of ICB. From Little Caesars Italian cheese bread. Eat it if you haven't. It's pretty good for the price, I would say. Good cheese bread. Especially with the sauce. But essentially, these missiles are, very heavy military shit. These things can do a lot of fucking damage. Obviously, the scariest thing about them is that they're missiles. Obviously, they big boom. But these are the kind of missiles that you can attach a nuclear warhead to. And obviously now we're talking nuclear warfare. So that's scary. They're saying that Japanese officials said the ICBM had sufficient range to reach the mainland of the United States, and that landed just 200 kilometers or 130 miles off Japan. So it's showing that they are getting better at it. And I mean, essentially that is, I guess, the process here is that, look, we are obviously a focused country on our military here. Like, our motherfuckers aren't, people in our country are not eating because we want to make sure that we have the strongest military that we can muster to potentially, inevitably, according to them, reclaim and unite Korea or yada yada, defend themselves against enemies, what have you. I mean, shoot, this is a tangent, but I've listened to some limited series on just the cybercrime that North Korea gets into, and it's very interesting. I feel like I've definitely not talked about it enough on this podcast, if maybe even at all, but definitely the Lazarus heist. That's a big one if you want to look that up and learn something there. It's very interesting. But essentially, they are very focused on this nuclear... Well, I mean, it's at least a missile program, because eventually they are going to ramp it into a nuclear program. But this is something that they have, the West, South Korea, Japan... multiple people are saying, yo, you have to stop. You can't do this. Let's see. I'll read a little bit more here. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and leaders of Japan, South Korea, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand condemned the launch at an emergency meeting called on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, summit on Friday. So, and then they also are running more drills, more air defense drills, more planes in the air, stuff like that, in response to this. So I mean, it's just a tightening of tension, and I mean, North Korea is just bound and determined to keep doing this, keep pushing it. Like I said, they've been firing a lot of missiles, just popping off. There's been shooting kind of situations, like crossfire type shits that have happened. I just haven't been like, there was a week where like they were just popping missiles off, and I literally just didn't cover it because I had covered it like a week or two before. And I was like, sheesh. Like, so this one was a little bit bigger, so I wanted to kind of include it into the mishmash hodgepodge. Uh, but now we're gonna move it back to the states for the next two. Sadly, not good news. We have a shooting in one and stabbing in the other. Multiple people killed. This one I got from Yahoo News and NBC News. UVA, or it's like University of Virginia, I believe. Shooting suspect in custody. The 3 students killed were on the football team, officials say. Let's see. I wanted to run the names off of these of the students. Give me 1 second. I think I passed it. Yeah, let's read it from the top. Marlene Linthang. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong names. We'll just start from the top. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. But a student, I'm trying to think of, they got the name of Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. He was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder and 3 counts of using a handgun. And it was in the deaths of Deshaun Perry, Devin Chandler, and Lavelle Davis Jr. But essentially, as I've heard the news and, kind of gleaned from this article, Jones was a part of the team, which was the Virginia Cavaliers, or the UVA Cavaliers, sorry. Yeah. And he was a part of this team in 2018, but he wasn't on the roster any time after that. So it's believed that he was like let go of the team or something like that, and maybe had some animosity. I'm not quite sure on the motive there, but allegedly, I guess, I don't know what words you're supposed to use in these kind of situations. I'm not that official, but he came up onto like their school bus and was like in a parking garage, or maybe like some people were out or whatever, and he shot into the school bus. I'm not sure, but essentially they had come back from a play in Washington, and one of the victims was asleep. And essentially, he shot and killed 3 people and injured 2 others. So, I mean, just a really sad situation. It's also more so that there was some signs. I mean, he had a gun. Like, it is that this has been like reported that like he had told another person who wasn't affiliated with the school, but it came out that like he had told him like, hey, I have a gun. But they didn't have any like intention or anything like that. So there's nothing that they could do about it. But essentially after that shooting, he was on the run, and there was a remain in shelter order put in place on the campus and whatnot, and like the area. But police authorities apprehended him just before 11 a.m., about 75 miles southeast of the university's campus. So, I mean, there's a really sad state of affairs. I don't know if more is going to come out. Obviously, there's going to be a trial. I mean, there's just so many of these things. There's just going to be like a flood over time that we're just going to see and trickle. And I mean, there's even some that I know I'm missing. And, obviously sorry about that in advance. But, I know there's a lot of news, and some of it it flows past me and through me. But, I try to do my best. We got one more, and like I said, it's not any better. But, the time. I got to freshen up. Ooh, baby. Ugh. We're back. Um, Last one I got from Yahoo News / Associated Press. Killer who stabbed 4 students to death, still at large. Also, potentially adding killers. I didn't think about that until I read this article. Um, but 4 students of the University of Idaho were killed. They were stabbed in a. It was like it wasn't a house on campus, but it was a house that was like directly adjacent, and these were all campus kids. Um, and let's see, the town is Moscow, Idaho. Let's see. Let's see if I can find the names here. And I'd be scrolling and missing them sometimes. Let's see. The victims were identified as Ethan Chapin, a 20-year-old from Conway, Washington; Madison Mogan, a 21-year-old from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho; Xana Kernodle, 20, from Avondale, Arizona; and Kaylee Goncalves, 21, from Rathdrum, Idaho. Um, Authorities have not described which of the victims lived in the home. So I'm pretty sure, though, from what I've gleaned from other sources, that it is like a girl's like house. I think Chapin is like a boyfriend of one of the girls. But essentially, they were stabbed in the home. They were like, of the 4, there were like 2 different parties. One was at a food truck, which I found out reading this article was in a live stream, like a Twitch live stream, and they're seen chatting, hanging out, and then they go home. And then the other 2 go, I believe, like someplace like downtown in the city, and then come back home. And then at some point, I believe like early morning, this all takes place, and potentially the killer or killers do the stabbing, and then it's reported. And I believe like the door was open. There were like, it didn't look like there was any kind of forced entry. I'm thinking, or at least from from what I'm recalling, and so. And also something that I learned too, some context about Moscow, Idaho. This is definitely one of those towns that's like a small town, and this is like a small, cozy little campus type thing. There's been like no homicides for like a really long time, so you like have your door unlocked. You potentially like are gonna leave your keys in the car, heat your shit up, yada yada yada, Johnny go lucky type vibes, right? Um, Now, it's not said whether or not that plays into this. They haven't even, like, there's no suspects that they've come out with. And I think it's believed that they don't know. Like, they don't have any, like, concrete leads. But they are saying that this is an isolated event, so that people shouldn't be, like, freaking out. But I don't know. Excuse me, in advance, maybe. A little bit. There we go. Little ripple there. I don't know. This is a very, I don't want to say interesting, but it's just, the knife. That's definitely, I feel like, something that's, I don't know, that you got to know. You would think you would know these people, but then it's like, my first thing is like, well, how do you know this isn't like, especially with this person being at large, how do you not know this isn't someone else? But I mean, they seem certain to know that this is an isolated event, but they haven't released any other information. Now, in terms of the town, in terms of like campus, they're letting people like go early for like Thanksgiving break. So like a lot of like students left, kind of did their holiday stuff early. But I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely a really sad situation. It's sad to see, just comparing these two. It can be a gun. It can be a knife. Obviously, I mean, this doesn't, in my opinion, change any kind of like gun regulation conversations. I still don't think you need an AR. I mean, whether or not people are getting killed with whatever fucking utensil, I don't think that changes that. You want to try to minimize damage. But it's just sad that these things feel so inevitable. Like, there's no amount of policing, there's no amount of security, there's no amount of regulation, it feels like. And it's just one of those cruel reminders at how scary the world is. And I definitely don't want to do the thing where people go, oh, how scary the world is these days, because I don't think it's a these days thing. I think the world's always been scary, and I just think you get reminders throughout your life. Um, so yeah, I mean, once again, not the brightest of stories and things to talk about today, but I appreciate you hanging out with me, listening to me blah blah blah, poorly tell news, if you will. Um, but if you don't think I'm doing so poorly, if you don't think I'm doing so poorly, and you'd like to help out the cause that is Isaiah's Newsstand, I do have a Patreon that you can donate to. You can become a member, become a newsie. Essentially, $5 will get you access to bonus content, so like bonus episodes. Then I also have a page, or I have a Discord. I am trying to get that going. We're trying to get that off the ground. I'd like to. Maybe it's something that I'm working towards in a long distant future. This is like a utopian thinking, but I want to have a community of people talking. I think that shit's cool, and I want to have that for me. Yeah, I said it. But yeah, just it's a Discord that comes with the Patreon. Then also you get a shout out. So once a month I shout out all the newsies, and I potentially will talk about some news you want to talk about. You can shoot me a line on something, or you just want me to like shout out some extra stuff, give you extra plugs, dude. I'm down. Let's network. Let's like link and build, fam. Let's see the free ways you can contact me or the pod, whatever. Isaiah News 1 at gmail.com. And I am always online, so you can find me. I got a Facebook, I got a Twitter, I got a Tumblr. You just look at me, you look up the podcast, you'll find one of us. I'm sure of it. But yeah, hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye bye. Mwah.